All right, guys, welcome back. We got the Bergeasons here in the house, in the studio. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having us.
So we got Lacey and Bron. When did we meet?
Matt.
I think you reached out to me on Instagram.
First,
I
right?
did.
Yeah.
I did.
And then we went to Big Shots, right? And then we kind of got to know each other there. And then we've rubbed shoulders with a lot of the same people. So
About a year
The
ago.
real estate world is
that sounds about right.
So-
Yeah. Yep. The real estate world is
not
small.
right now, I guess. Getting smaller.
It's getting smaller. I heard actually
getting smaller.
60,000 agents didn't renew their license just recently, nationwide.
Right. Oh,
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah, here in St. George.
Okay.
And like 1,700 in St. George. But at Bron, you have your license, you do that, but you also have a pest control company that you've been running for
Almost about 19 years.
19. I didn't even
Makes me
it's that long.
That makes me sound really old.
19
it's only 25
years.
So it's really impressive.
It's just here in St. George, though.
It's mesquite to cedar.
Okay, cool. 19 years.
Yeah, crazy.
That's awesome. And then you're doing a bunch of stuff on Instagram, and you sell a little bit of stuff on there too, right? Making a little bit of
Yeah,
money.
a little bit. It's kind of weird. I just kind of stepped back from it just a week ago. So
Yeah.
I'm in a weird transitional phase right now.
I'm
but-
curious if we just jump into that, maybe. I mean, why? What's the reason why on that? Is there any big reason, or is it just I just want to do something else?
So I started doing Instagram stuff probably 3 or 4 years ago and loved it. It's been so fun. I grew my following. It was awesome. I had so many fun opportunities. And then I've kind of gotten to a place in motherhood that
Yeah.
I don't have quite as much time outside, and I just want to be with my kids a little bit more. And not that Instagram doesn't do that. It's great because you can do that. But it got to a point where I think I was just ready to shut out the noise kind of and step back. And so it was kind of on a whim. And I actually was going to do it months ago. And then we were training for an Ironman and I'd been posting my journey about that. And I was like, I'll wait till that's done.
Over, yeah.
And then kind of transition over. So I did that. And I feel like there's something big on the horizon for me, but I'm not sure what yet.
I love that.
And that was part of that, clearing out some of the
Yeah.
noise and just opening it up for whatever opportunity comes my way. So
I love that. I love being able to look at things that way. It's like you only have a certain amount of time, energy, and attention to give to something. And it's like, you guys seen that? I don't know. There's this picture of Jesus where he has this big teddy bear behind his back. And then the little girl's like, I got that little one. I don't want to let it go. It's that's the thing that I think of all the time in business when it's like me and my wife, Corinne, were just talking today. Is we have these big goals and what we want in passive income, and when we just sold a property and we got a big check, and we're like, hey, well, now what do we do with that to be able to really put it in something else to create more passive income? And we started doing the numbers on it, and the numbers aren't real great right now because your interest rate's so high, and so we're just gal, if we really want to perform at a high level, we need to start making multiple 7 figures, to be able to get to where we want to be quicker.
Yeah.
And so exactly what you're saying, we're like, okay, what can we get rid of to be able to get to that point?
yeah. And like you said, with the energy thing, I feel like there's a lot of output going out that sometimes you don't realize how much is going out until you block those channels off, And that was one for me. I deleted over 8,000. Well, it was actually 10,000 followers, and then didn't realize how much time I was spending on my phone. And not that that's a bad thing. I was doing great things with it and I loved it, but it was nice to just shut that out and realize that I had now an extra hour to my day of what do I get to fill it with?
Yeah. Now what?
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we have to be careful with what we fill it with because it's going to be filled by something. Right?
Yes. Yes. So I'm trying to be careful with what I fill it with until I find the purpose there. But
yeah, that's cool. So I mean, I kind of see you guys this way. Bron is the stoic, calm, collected, wise rock.
that's
That's Bron.
Yep.
Right?
100%.
And then you're the creative, wild, fun, go meet people, go do things, try new things. And Bron's just there to hold you down just in case, right?
He is. I'm
That's you
loose
guys.
cannon, and he's
Probably fairly accurate.
yeah.
Yeah, in all good ways
well
like
together
that. But
for
that's
that.
that's kind of for the listeners. I feel like that's probably a pretty good way to describe
He's
Yeah.
pretty darn.
as individuals in a relationship.
We're polar opposites for sure.
Full opposite.
So it's fun.
But just I don't want to say clash in a good way, but it's pretty seamless in how we, I guess, operate our roles.
Yeah,
I should call it somehow. Yeah. Kind of how you described it. It works well for us.
that's cool. And opposites, I feel like, are good to be able to have because you complement each other. But
100%.
I'm curious to know your answer on this question for just the listeners. You guys have a family, right? You have kids, you guys, obviously, like, so, but you have multiple businesses, multiple things going on. You're driven. You just did Ironman. You've got other things that you have goals and dreams to do. So you're busy.
Yeah.
How do you keep a strong marital relationship through that and a strong relationship with your kids?
Good question.
That's a very good call.
You want to take it or do you want me to?
You go ahead and I'll
You're going to be the rock.
be the rock.
You'll be the backup.
If I need to jump in here.
Yeah.
No, it's funny because we were just talking about the other night we got in bed and I said, you know what I really like about our relationship is we always go to bed at the same time. And I feel like that has grounded us in a relationship from the beginning. That has never wavered in us. I mean, granted, when we had newborns, it was a little bit different, but really for the most part, I think straight across the board is we start and end our day together. And I have really loved that. I think it keeps us very in tune. And that's our time to kind of talk, go over our day, and just kind of fill each other in on where we are. And I think it's helped a lot.
Yep. We check in with each other a lot, whether it's planning, be weekly planning. We'll often each night check in. What's your day look like tomorrow? So we do daily check in, weekly check in, and then I feel like we often have something going that we're doing together. Most recent Ironman, it's something we did together.
Yeah,
we didn't realize how busy that would be for us, but I feel like that was a huge like coming together for us.
Yeah,
because we were doing something pretty crazy and wild together, and I think little things like that, just touchstones daily and weekly, where we just check in.
Even hourly, though, because we are one of those couples that talk all day. Like, even when he's at work, we're texting. If he's in the car for a while, he'll call me and check in. How's your day going? What does it look like? And so kind of just knowing where each other's at, even minute to minute, hour to hour, beneficial for us.
Stalk them and find friends and all that, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm probably more that way.
Make sure he's not at the liquor store.
She's like out of town or somewhere where I know she's playing solo.
Yeah.
I'm probably over
I appreciate it.
in a good way,
need it.
and not a creepy way.
No, I like that a lot. Just the little things. I like the going to bed at the same time so that you can talk. I like the weekly planning so you can talk. And not every listener is married and has kids, but for those people specifically, and then also for those that do have kids, you'll know this. It's tough when you have kids to communicate. It's tough to go and do an Ironman together.
So hard.
It's very difficult because, especially if you have a newborn, but even just young kids, you got to get a babysitter.
Yep.
And they got to be on time. And it's almost like, if it's your family, it's like, you almost feel like you're like stepping on toes.
Yep.
There's so much that goes into that people that don't have kids don't really understand. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's awesome. It's commendable that you guys do that. And I think it's important.
Thanks.
100% agree. That's where we, as I say, I said we didn't realize the undertaking it would be, and we often felt guilty for how often we were using, I call it our circle, family and friends to step in and help. But at the same time, it did multiple things. I feel like I realized one, it would push us, and we were both forced to do things. The whole point of, and a lot of why we were doing it was to push ourselves and to, one, show our kids that you can accomplish seemingly you don't think you can do, don't want to do. One thing that I think we're working on is trying to make ourselves be a little more comfortable, being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And so
I like that.
Having to always find people to babysit, not always being able to, it would force us to, one of us has to get up,
Get creative,
and go swim.
Yep.
Or else it's not going to happen that day. Yeah. And so I think it pushed us that way. And then also, one of the big reasons we've talked about doing it is showing our kids that you can do things. You just might have to look at it differently.
Yeah.
Of course.
That's sacrifice. Yeah. I like that a lot. Like waking up at 4:30, you can always find time. You may be tired.
Yeah, I would say it's not always going to be convenient, but
and I feel like, I don't know if you guys agree, but I feel like it's sustainable for a few months. I don't know if it's sustainable for a lifetime. You got to get but where you have a goal, I think it's awesome.
And also, I think for us, our circle, when we expressed what our goal was, our circle, that became their goal. right? Like my parents, his parents, everybody that helped us out wanted us to achieve our goal just as bad as we did. So it was really cool how they all came together to make that happen for us too.
Here's one that I want to talk about, and it's gonna be like there's friction here, and that's why I want this question to be out there. I was at the gym yesterday with a friend. He brought this up, and I'm like, this is a good one. This is a good one. This is a good question for you guys. He goes, hey, we don't know whether, he's just talking. He's like, I don't know if we're going to have another kid. It's just so hard. Pregnancy's so hard on the dads. And I'm like, yes, it is. I mean, okay, to be fair, he's not saying that it's not hard on his wife too. But as a guy, and he's talking to a guy who has 3 kids, 1 on the way, wife's pregnant, me right now, like, he's saying like, yeah, I don't know how you guys do it with 3, and then you got 1 on the way. Like, pregnancy, I hate it. And so I was like, well, why? Like, and he started getting into it. And I was like, I feel the same way. And I think that a lot of other guys feel the same. So this is what he said. He's like, it's difficult because, and I'm just going to be raw and honest, like when your wife gets pregnant, she can be sick for the first trimester. So intimacy
or longer
doesn't happen for a guy. So you go from a schedule to nothing. And as guys, I don't care who you are, even if you're stoic Bron, it is going to be extremely difficult to be able to be stoic if you get thrown off your schedule.
Yeah.
Right? And you just do. And then it said for him, it was kind of funny. He said, then the last trimester, and I'm not going to say who this is because I thought it was funny. He's like, then his wife gets this huge libido and wants to have sex all the time. And he's like, but babe, I'm not like, you're 8 months pregnant and I'm not like crazy attracted to you right now. I love you, but
interesting. Okay.
And so it's like this big topic that nobody talks about as a guy. And as a woman on your side, you're like, I'm sick, I'm uncomfortable. If you have a baby during the summer in St. George, it's hot.
Mm-hmm.
You don't love your body. You don't feel sexy. You don't want to have sex because you don't love your body. I mean, these are things that I hear all the time. Can we talk about that? Sure. Is that okay to talk about? Like, as a couples, what would you give, like, advice to other couples that are having kids, they have it now, they struggle with it in the past, they're pregnant now. How do you get through that as a couple?
I think everything should be talked about, because how else do you kind of come to conclusions or solve problems? So I've found, and I've not always been good at this, and I still often struggle, that this is where the checking in daily thing, I would often just pull things and I would get almost, I would get frustrated, and I would just bottle things up, and just start to get frustrated and upset. And I'm like, she has no idea. I haven't even talked to her.
Yeah.
And so I think that's where the checking in for us, and like I say, I'm not like, I don't seek confrontation. I don't love it. So I honestly avoid it unless deemed necessary to be like, you know what, no, I gotta about this. And so that's where, me checking in with her, and there has to be zero barriers, whether it's that's not one that it's an awkward thing for me sometimes to talk about. And so, but I have to be upfront and be like, this is what I'm feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And I have needs, you do, you feel this way, I feel this way. I think can be a simple conversation. Probably not always, but I have to, and I've realized I have to bring it to her and be like, this is where I'm at, and this is how I feel. Tell me what you think, and let's figure it out. Let's find a solution. It may not be the solution I want short term, but I know 9 months isn't technically necessarily short term, but in the grand scheme of things it is, and let's just figure out how we can make it work for now. And then, I don't know, what do you think?
No, I agree. I think, so Bron and I did premarital counseling before we dated for almost 2 years. And honestly, like anybody out there that is not married and is dating someone, do premarital counseling. It's the best thing ever. And we've gone to counseling as well since we've been married a few times. And we honestly like don't have major issues in our relationship, but we also get stuck in the same conversations over and over again, right? You'll get in fights with your spouse that start as something and they end as something else. And it's always the same thing for us. It would always keep coming back. So that was one thing I think that really our therapist talked to us about, was the communication factor of like, I don't want intimacy when I don't feel loved in certain ways.
Sure.
Ron, in return, he wants physical connection
All the time.
because he's a man,
'Cause he's a
right?
man.
And that's how he feels connected, is physically.
Most men.
Yeah,
Also-
I would say generally that's probably pretty true. And that was something that I had to realize, like, when he's, initiating something with me, it's not because he is just trying to get something and leave. It's because he feels distant from me. And in pregnancy, go back to your question, I feel like that happens really quickly, right? The woman feels like, I'm growing this human for our family.
Yeah.
How dare you
Yeah.
feel like
Yeah.
that I'm not reaching
So,
out because
yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
doing this for us, right? And I think when you can have that open communication and say, hey, I'm reaching out for intimacy because I feel distant from you or because I need connection from you, I think that lets your guard down. At least for me, it does. When I hear him say, I don't feel connected to you, I'm way more likely to want sex that night as well, right? Because I'm like, oh, it's a connection thing. It's not anything more than that. And I've always appreciated that aspect of it, of viewing it from that angle.
Mm-hmm. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. What you said, where you're saying like, I'm growing this human for us.
Yeah,
I've heard that same thing on the guy's side for, I'm building this business for us.
sure.
Don't you realize that I'm spending all this time at work? What do you mean you need me home at 5? Like,
Valid.
it works on both sides, right?
100%.
And so I think what you're saying is key, that how do we come together to just be able to find neutral ground
Yeah.
where we can find connection?
Yeah.
How do we connect? Because that's what we want anyway.
Yeah. And I think a lot of times humans in general, this is something I've really been learning in the last couple of years, going to therapy, doing, a bunch of different things to like help understand how I work and how my spouse works and friends work. But just one of those things is like, when you meet somebody with compassion and not anger, even in your own spouse, sometimes I think it can come across as that, right? Like, how dare you think anything because I'm doing this for us? That comes across a little aggressive, or it can be hurtful sometimes. But if you meet them with compassion of like, I really want to be with you tonight, or I want to do this with you, but I'm missing this, it really humanizes somebody and makes you understand that all of us are feeling things and we need things from our spouse, from our friends, everybody around us, but we're not very good at communicating that.
Yeah. Yep, that's true. Because our love languages are very different.
Totally.
Really.
And my
guys,
guys changed several times too. Like, I used to be a huge physical touch person when we were dating. And since having kids, I still appreciate physical touch, but it's definitely a lot less because I'm literally touched all day long
so
by children.
stimulated.
Yeah. And it's a different touch, obviously, but like, I'm like, I need to breathe for 5 seconds and it's not you.
Oh, that's good. Can we go one level deeper? Just one?
Good.
So here's another thought that I have that I want to get out and just talk about for a second. So this is something that the same guy talked about. He said when his wife didn't want sex throughout the pregnancy, the way he described it is, he's like, I don't know what to do when my wife is a dead fish. Now, he isn't calling her a dead fish, but you get what I'm saying. Yep. She's not moving. She's intimate. She's not into it, right?
Starfish is sometimes another term.
There you go.
Lay there.
You're just there. And it's like, all right, do your thing, feel better, and then let's get on with the day. To a guy, I get his point. Like, you want to connect. I get that women could, feel like, well, here we go again. But as a guy, you really do, find connection there too a lot of the time. But one of the things that we talked about too was for a guy, and maybe this is for a girl, but I'd love to hear the girl's side of this, because I agree as a guy. One time having intimate sex with your spouse is worth 20 times of just, we'll call it the dead fish.
Yeah.
Okay? Like, just that one time where you really connect, you're into it together, you both have that connection, is just like, you're almost good for like a, if you're like every other day kind of person, like you're good for 2 weeks almost. Like you're like, that made me feel super connected. Yeah. So curious to know, woman's side of things, guy's side of things, what are your thoughts on that? like, let's see where it goes and what rabbit hole we go down. But how do you come together as a couple to be able to actually be intimate with everything that's going on in life?
Communication.
Back to that.
100%.
Yeah.
Like, and it's funny because we, not super recently, but within the last few years, have had kind of this same struggle of like, he wants intimacy more intense than I do, right? And sometimes I'm like, you're a woman. It's kind of exhausting. It's a lot of work. Not that I don't enjoy it the entire time. I do, but it's also the after, like it's a lot more work before and after for a woman.
Sure.
So sometimes it, becomes more of a thing. And that was one thing that we really communicate.
All the women, by the way, right now are going, yep, she's right.
But it's true.
Right.
It's not as easy. Like, it's just not. But that's also something, side note too, is if you as a woman don't want sex with whoever your partner is, check in with yourself. Why don't you? Because women should enjoy sex just as much as men enjoy sex. And I think it's become such a, what's the word? Like a cliche to say that like women just do it because their husband wants it. Yeah. Sorry to get uncomfortable here. I enjoy sex. It's great. It's something I look forward to. It's something, and I think it becomes such a stigma that women don't enjoy it and it's all for the man. So I think sometimes when you think about it like that, of when he's communicating with me that he wants sex, I probably also do too, but maybe there's factors outside of it that I just need to talk through or express to him why I'm maybe not feeling it right then or whatever. And I think that's helped us a lot in finding common ground and also improved our sex life like immensely.
Yeah.
Are you uncomfortable right now?
Well, not everybody have it. No, it's totally
my
fine.
hammer now. That was good though.
No, it's super good.
I agree.
Yeah, because it's like kind of to your point is like there's times where it's like this is just a burden. Or I mean, it's just like you say, what do you need? Okay, fine. There you go.
Yeah.
Happy. Go at it.
That doesn't feel good for me either. Like I don't like that.
And so, yeah, I think it does boil down to the communication and I don't know. And I feel like probably most people communicate like we've kind of begun to, but maybe not. But everything changes when we are like probably for myself uncomfortably open between each other, which I mean to a level I've never been.
Yeah.
But I think that's helped tremendously, and it's because there were so many times where I'm like, she just views this as a total burden.
Yeah.
And it's like I'm embarrassed to talk to my wife about it. Why am I embarrassed?
Yeah.
And feel awkward about being like, hey.
But also that's because, right, like you don't
feel
talk about it as a man. That's uncomfortable to say, hey, like to be vulnerable in something so intimate.
Right.
I think that's got to be uncomfortable for a man. Whereas I think women are just naturally a little bit more open with that.
Yeah.
And maybe not all, but me personally, I guess I can only speak for myself. But
yeah, it's like until we got to that point, it was like legit. Like when we were dating, it's like, yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, like in marriage, I'm like, years. Well, shouldn't feel this awkwardness about just being open. No, I'm just saying like in the past. Yeah. Been married for 7.5 years. But I'm like, I shouldn't feel like legit, like I'm dating of like, do I dare hold her hand? Am I going to be like overbearing here? My wife.
Yeah.
Can I talk
and
to her
best friend? Like,
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think until we got to that point where it's like, you know what, there's nothing we can't talk about, as awkward as it is, and there's nothing, I can't say anything that is too embarrassing or too, because it's something that's important to me, or it's a way I feel. I can't help that that's how I feel. So why should it be embarrassed to talk to my wife about something? Anything.
So good, because there's so many people, and maybe this is a Utah stigma a little bit. I think it is a little bit, because we're kind of raised in a culture in Utah where we don't talk about sex, where it's not okay, and then all of a sudden it is. And even if you're not like a frigid person, like even if you felt like in high school you were kind of like maybe a little bit touchy-feely, you could still jump into a marriage and sex and have no idea what the freak you're doing.
Totally.
Right? And so, and it's like, it's not talked about at the dinner table. It's not talked about anytime. Me growing up, I never had a birds and the bees talk.
That is funny.
I never had it. I mean, awkward, crazy stories. Like, I didn't know how you had kids all the way till like I was on my mission. Like, crazy stuff. I'm telling you, that's embarrassing as heck. Don't make a reel out of that. Don't.
That was going viral for sure.
For sure. I mean, it's just crazy stuff because you don't. I mean, I know people. They got addicted to pornography because they didn't know how to have sex, and so they went online to figure out how to do it, and then they got addicted to porn, and then they had to go and figure it out. So I mean, it's like here's my take on it, and I would love to hear yours. We need to call words the way, like, we need to say vagina, we need to say penis, call it a dick, call it whatever. They need to hear the words, so that as uncomfortable as it may sound coming out of your mouth, so that they know what it is before their friends say it. And if it just becomes a normal conversation in a healthy way, now we're not afraid of it. Now we don't have to shun it. And hopefully we can break that culture to where when they do get married, it's not have as many problems.
Yeah. That also plays into like something we've done with both of our kids from honestly infant, like, or infancy, however you'd say that, is when I'm changing a diaper, we name the parts as they are. Always. And I do this with my son often. What's this? What's this? What's this? Who can touch that? Who can see that? And it really opens that dialogue again. So when they're 15 years old and we're starting to have, or younger probably now, but starting to have those conversations, that's not the first time he's heard me call his penis a penis, right? Yeah. Like, it might still be a little bit uncomfortable, but it changes the dynamic. And honestly, that's how I was raised. My parents are both very open. My dad's a little more closed, but me and my mom are very close. And my mom's always been very open with me. Call it what it is. If you have questions, come to me first. Before we got married, my mom was like, do you have questions? And I don't know. And she's like, I've been having sex for, I don't know how many years she's been married. 30 years, whatever. And she's like, if you're going to ask somebody, take it from somebody that's had experience and not your friend got married 6 months ago, right? Yeah. And I think it just kind of breaks down that stigma. So starting it from a young age, that also is with like grooming. It prevents a lot of grooming, sexual abuse things. It all plays into that. And so I think it's very important, not just for breaking that stigma, but
which is a totally appropriate thing right now with the OUR movie coming out and stuff. There's a lot of like when we're talking about that and the grooming, like there was a story of somebody here in southern Utah where at least I hope I don't get this wrong. I believe it was in southern Utah, where there was a little girl that went to one of her teachers, 6, 7 years old, and said, "Hey, this other teacher in my last class touched my cookie." And she's like, "Oh, like tell Mr. So-and-so not to touch your cookie anymore." "No, he keeps touching my cookie." And she's like, "Well, just tell him that you just want to eat your cookie alone next time. Like, don't touch your cookie, It's just thinking she's just joking or the teacher's joking around with her. Well, the problem is that her parents told her instead of a vagina, that the part of her body that is the vagina was a cookie.
Yeah.
And so what the little girl was trying to communicate to the other teacher was this other teacher is sexually coming on to me and touching me in inappropriate places. If the parents had just called it what it was, then that wouldn't have happened. She would have said, "Hey, so-and-so just touched my vagina."
Yeah.
Instant red flags would have went up and they would have gone to the bottom of that. But instead it went on and more kids were affected. And if it would have just happened then there would have been a lot of other kids that were saved.
That also plays into, I have heard, maybe somebody fact check this for me, but like kids are much less likely to be sexually abused if they know the correct term and say, "Don't touch my whatever it may be," right? Because as an adult, you would take a step back. This kid knows what's happening and can communicate this to an adult, and I would be more likely to get caught. So super helpful on that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I like that. This is all stuff. I mean, like I said, I think starting out this before we got on camera is like, who knows where this is going to go? This is not my plan, but it's okay. Like, I think this is healthy and it needs to be talked about for sure. In today's day and age, it's something that a lot of people struggle with and needs to be out there on a massive scale. For sure. And it's not just Utah. It's everywhere. You guys seen the movie OUR?
Yeah.
How was it? I haven't seen it.
Oh,
awesome.
Good. It's so hard to watch, but
That's what I've heard.
Especially as a parent.
I cried. It was super hard to
Yeah.
watch. It was intense. It was amazing.
I thought Bron was going to
Just
start throwing
bite your
fits
tongue.
over that,
Oh,
but
it's just like hard to watch because all you
It's very
see,
important.
all you see through the whole time, at least for me, you just envision your kids, that being your kid, and just like oh my gosh, I mean, my blood pressure was probably through the roof the whole time between like the hurt for ruin it for people, but for the hurt that's seen from the child standpoint, especially, but from a parent standpoint, everything. It's just, it just makes your blood boil, and it literally, I mean, that's happening so much, and seemingly nothing's done about it.
But it comes back to what you said earlier about being comfortable being uncomfortable. Those are the things that we need to stop being uncomfortable about.
Yeah.
Like, it is hard to watch, but you have to sit through that whole thing and understand that that's happening.
Yep. And that's what, I mean, we just watched maybe last year, the one on Netflix where it's a Tim Ballard one where he goes to Haiti, I want to say.
Oh, when he does the raid?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, hard to watch, hard to hear what the guys are talking about when they're talking about underage girls, what they're doing. Oh, it's explicit.
Oh, yeah.
For sure. You don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
And you wonder how in the world how could it come out of somebody's mouth, but in public, like around other people?
Yeah.
Like, you're willing to say that around other people?
Mm-hmm.
That's insane. But it happens, and it happens on a massive scale.
Yep.
And I think that's so funny because it's coming back to the way we started this, which is, how's your relationship as a couple? How's that affecting your kids? How does that affect your family? How do we strengthen the family to where we almost put the shield, right, against that,
Yeah.
where they can't break in? Because the other thing that I've heard from some of the tactical people that I've talked to in that space is that the predators won't go after strong families as much. They don't want to go after strong families because higher chance of getting caught, and like they're going to go after them, and they're more passionate about it. They're going to seek them down and kill them.
Yeah.
They want to go after people in third world countries,
Mm-hmm.
preferably, or just places with broken families where the kids just run on the streets all the day.
Easy to pick off.
Kids
Yeah.
are easy to pick off.
Yep.
Makes sense.
No, 100%. Yeah.
So the family, like that core unit, and we're taught that all the time, but like that is so central to thwarting all the other stuff.
There was a video I just watched talking about there was a few predators that were interviewed about what they look for when picking a child, and all of them had in common that if the dad wasn't present or didn't come off as a threat. So how important their dads? Extremely.
Yeah.
Like, I can't even push that enough. Dads are so important in a family.
Huh. Yeah, that's
It's a roadblock removed, if so.
Yeah, we're in a world and a day and age now where you wonder sometimes how much the media is pushing this and how much it really actually is believed by the vast majority of America. But where masculinity is kind of being attacked, they call it toxic masculinity now. And although I think I get some of the point of that, I think that in anything you can go too far one way or the other. In times like these, or maybe I'll say a different way, you need to know when the time is to be a man. You need to know when it's time to be, as Jordan Peterson says, a monster, right? And be able to have that rage or that protective nature or whatever come out. It was built in us for a reason by God, in my opinion. Why else would he do that? Where we can just go into this state of mind where it is like fight or flight, and we're just like,
yeah, know how to be a monster, and
we're ready to fight,
and be able to sheath it, as
Yeah.
because he puts it, have the ability, but know when to use it.
know when like pull it out of your quiver of arrows, essentially, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so good, so good. Love the family aspect, love like all of those things. But let's maybe end a little bit on business stuff. Is that cool?
For sure.
Business stuff and where you guys are at. What are your guys' weekly plan? I know you guys are big goal setters. What are your current goals right now in business?
Business, go ahead.
So business. So the main thing for us as pest control business, right? I have a pest control business going on about, I think, 19 years now. We've been going at that. And so goals for that, great growth, 20-ish% growth year over year. And so it's been phenomenal.
Year over year for 19 years.
For not for 19, but for probably the last 4 to 5
Wow.
years, it's been that. And
It's awesome.
when we really kind of gotten after things. And have a great crew, a lot of great employees. My brother, Braden, we're partners on it, and so he's awesome. He pushes things, and we get that question a lot. How does it go
Between
working
you
with two brothers?
Yeah, as partners.
And it's honestly, we've never had an issue. I think we complement each other on how we do things. He's the very much kind of the red, like, this is what we're doing, get it done. And then I'm just kind of I don't know how you describe it, I guess, but we would just complement each other incredibly well, and it just works. And so, yeah, growing like crazy. And so our goals for that, I guess, kind of, I have a paper on my computer. I stare out of a 5-year plan, and it's to, potentially, like, I guess one of two things. The main is to just get that more self-sustained, right? There was no playbook for how we started it, so we were working ourselves out of being so involved, which we got ourselves into, which has been great because it got us to where we are. But it's really hard to work ourselves back out of it and have it much more self-sustained. We're well on track, so, and short and long-term goals with that, much more self-sustained and efficient, and delegation to our awesome guys. And so that's kind of where that is, and have it poised to just continued growth, right? I think I've heard it. Can your business grow if you're not there?
Yeah.
Can it sustain if you're not there? And it's much more.
Not to
more
actually business. Most people don't have businesses, right? Because they're working in the
You own a
business.
job or own a business kind of thing, right? And
Most blue-collar businesses are that way.
for sure. Oh yeah, so heavily involved. And so we've got guys capable of handling all that, and it's just the continual process of working toward that. And so that's just getting that completely self-sustained. The value of that's just increasing incrementally. I think it's like 45% about a 22%. And so it's been awesome learning as we're going, because it's definitely growing. Like, we get to, like, summer's busy season, right? Winter's not as bad. It's definitely steady and busy.
Bugs slow down a little bit.
Yeah, slow down a little bit. And so we got ourselves poised through winter, and we're like, okay, we should be in good shape to sustain. And it's crazy. It's crazy, yeah. And so we've got 7 full-time guys, not counting my brother and I. And so we're running right now about 90 stops a day, 90 to 100 stops a day. And so that's a lot of moving parts.
Yep.
A lot of people's schedules to work around.
A lot of product. Make sure you have enough.
A lot of product.
So how long have you guys been married then? I'm getting somewhere with this. How long have you been married?
7.5 years.
So 19 years. So here's my question. He'd been running this for 12 years-ish, 11, 12 years. When you stepped into it, what did you think? What was your thoughts of, like, oh, you got this pest control business that's up and running? Were you like, I'm proud of you, like, you're so rich, you're amazing? Or were you like, oh, we're set for life? Or were you like, what were your thoughts?
So I think you know this, but we're 10 years apart. He's 10 years older than me. And when we initially started, when we first met, I was 19 when we met, and we dated for about 2 years. But when we very first met, I was so turned off by the whole idea that he had a house, he had a business. I was terrified. I'm like,
You're 19.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know if I'm ready for that. So initially it was a little scary to me. And then when we started dating, and obviously it was really nice when we got married, I moved into a home and not an apartment, or, it's been great. It's obviously such a blessing, and I'm incredibly proud of him. The way he runs his business and the way he carries himself is something I admire big time in him, and he's
Lots of
really
people
good at
admire
that.
Bron, for sure. I'm one of them. Yeah.
Yes,
I don't know.
I
that's
wish I was
the
as
number
stoic.
one thing when people know that I'm married to him. They're like, your husband is
Good dude.
amazing. Like, I know.
I don't have a 20 to give you a Target gift card or something.
You can send me a Venmo after.
Okay.
So you're like, hey, this is cool after a while.
Yeah.
And then did it stay cool, or were you like, come home more? Like, what was that like?
No, I think Bron's schedule, he's always been very aware of family. That's always been a goal of his. And so he's usually home by 2:30 in the afternoon, and it's great. So I really can't complain about that. There are days like when he started doing real estate again, there are longer days. Obviously, he'll come home and then do real estate.
Yep.
But Bron works, I can't swear on this, but dang hard for our family. And
You can. It's been done, but it's okay. Whatever.
And I appreciate all he does for us.
Yeah.
He's awesome. So
I can't tell my mom's going to listen to this. That's one here.
I mean, we talked about sex, so at this point.
Yeah. So 19 years. How old were you when you started?
So it's like it's all super random, early, honestly, how it all began. But I was kind of like junior year of high school. My dad had kind of started things with my brother, and they were kind of doing it, and I was kind of after high school, right? I go do some sprays, that kind of thing, start working into it. Then like post high school, post mission, then came over and kind of came more full time, and then kind of partnered with my brother. He was 100% owner at the time, and then I took ownership, part ownership, and then we just kind of ran with it. And so it's been, it was kind of, can't forget exactly what your question was, but
when you started it, basically, like, what was it like when you started it 19 years ago, and how did you do it? And
yeah.
So you're on the right track.
Yeah, so it was super random how we did it, because we moved here from Wyoming when I was sophomore in high school. Pest control is not a thing, or it wasn't a thing up there. You just didn't do it. You have like 3 months of weather that anything can survive in, and then it's just and then it's just a crapshoot after that. And so moved down here, and grandparents were like, "You guys can put your house sprayed." We're like, "What? What's okay? Whatever." And then so we did that, and then my dad started kind of buying his own stuff and doing it, and then he had a couple neighbors ask him to do it, and he goes to my brother who was in college at the time, he's like, "This could be something like you guys could run with." And so literally out of a trunk of a, can't even remember what the car is, Alero, I think it was an Alero, Oldsmobile Alero, a couple hand sprayers, and just knocking doors, cold calling just people in the phone book.
Wow.
And kind of started running from there, and just slowly, it was a slow build for many years, and then it just took off.
Just taking off referrals and just
word of mouth. It's St. George, you know St. George is, it's big but super
Who's your
small.
guy? This guy.
Yeah, it's 100%. You know him, and so word of mouth huge. We really don't advertise at all.
That's awesome.
We have an online presence if it can. I mean, you have to search it out, or word of mouth, and we pick up three to 5 a day in the heated season just by word of mouth.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that's interesting too, because I remember when I started in like moving in real estate, you're talking about how I don't spend any money on ad spend either for either one of those really. In real estate, I'm trying some right now. I just turned it off because I'm so sick of it. It's like, I see this money going, I'm like, I don't really need to, like, people are still calling me, like, I don't need to do that. But what I'm getting at is, like, I remember a mentor of mine 7 years ago talking to me like, if you will just be honest and you start building the right way, you'll start off slow, but if you can survive for 3 years and do a good job in real estate, you'll make it. You'll be able to make it. And I think it's probably not just real estate, and maybe there is a little bit of a small town feel here. I'm curious to know how that would do in California, but people are people, man.
Yeah.
People have feelings. People care about people who care. They have emotions. They want a bug guy that cares. They want a roofer that cares. They want anybody who cares. And if you just care about your business and show up in a different way, present yourself in a different, you're remembered.
That's 100% who they are. I mean, every Christmas they're doing random people's lights. Him and his brother will go and do it, or their employees, or change light bulbs in HOAs that, they get fined or whatever if their light bulbs are out. They have certain people that they'll do that every few weeks or however long it is. And it's because they've taken the time to care, and that's why they've sustained and now are just excelling because of that care. And
to your point, it's it's funny. I get questions all the time from pest control guys, door knockers, about how we do it. We're very unconventional in how we do approach pest control.
No contract.
Like no contract.
Well, it's totally opposite than door knocking.
Oh, totally opposite.
Totally opposite. Right? They're all like push, sell.
Yep, contracts.
Smile, all the little pieces.
We have 0 contracts, and our whole thing is, if you like us, you're gonna call us back, and that's we don't lose customers. I mean, it's a rare. If it is, it's my son-in-law started a pest control.
Yeah,
that's how we lose customers. Really, outside of that, you can't keep everyone happy, but I mean, 95 to 100% of our customers we maintain. I think it's that thing of we want to earn your business over and over again. And if we do, you're not going anywhere.
And you're in people's homes too, which is a huge factor, right? You're only going to let somebody in your home that you trust or
care about. Yeah.
Yeah.
Around your kids, dog, whatever. Yeah.
Yes. Whatever that, whatever your business is, that you're in people's homes or you're involved in people's lives in any capacity, they're choosy.
Yep.
As they should be.
Yep. Okay. Last question. I think this one's for Bron. Because in the pest control business, you're going to get people that are pissed off.
Yeah.
And I think you told me one time that you're the guy that if it gets too bad, you're the one that takes the calls. Is that true? You and your brother maybe, but you.
Yeah, my brother and I. If it's one of us.
Your guys don't take it to you. Yeah, it comes to you at the end of the day. I think this is probably it's still for entrepreneurs because everybody deals with this, especially in the blue collar space, especially. But young entrepreneurs that are starting a business and maybe you're like, should I keep going because somebody just got super pissed at me and I feel like giving up. Maybe a couple questions here. One, how do you deal with it personally? Like not let it get to you. Stoic Bron. And I think this is what I'm trying to say. Like when do you know when to like cut ties and let it go or to be the person that keeps them around? Like what's the balance there?
It's hard. I think it's, I guess my Braden's probably better at dealing with some of that, the anger of customers better. But I had one just before we came. Literally an hour ago, I had one where it was a guy that I think most often it just comes from miscommunication. And it's 100%. And this one was no different. We had an appointment to go spray a guy's house. He called and canceled like an hour before. Screws us up because then we have a half-hour slot where we're paying a guy to sit unless he can figure something out or we can find something to fill the gap. And so we're like, okay, I rescheduled. I called him and said, okay, when works? We set another time. No shows us. Calling him, nothing, no shows us. So we're now 60 minutes, an hour of our time for this guy. So typically people get a reminder if they don't cancel 24 hours before, we have a cancellation fee of $35. That's just so we're not in the hole if you don't show up. Yeah, because we're in the hole showing up at your door.
Right.
And so, and he didn't want to pay it. He's like, I called and canceled. I was like, that was the first one like an hour before. And then I called and said, 2:30 on this day, and you said I can make it work. And so he was throwing everything at me. And so he was a tenant of a landlord, and so he's like, I'm all right, and then I'll go to my landlord. Like, all right, fine. I know the landlord. And so landlord called. Anyways, it was just back and forth, and it came down to, is it worth? To me, it always comes down to what's it worth?
Mm-hmm.
What's it worth? Who's it gonna hurt more? And so ultimately, what we did, we ended up just wiping it out because we have a great relationship with the landlord. We've done business for, probably 15, 16 years.
Wow.
And so that's one of those that it's like, you're more important than the cancellation fee. We'll take a hit on this.
Yeah.
But it does come down to if there's a track record or if it's a person that's just like, it doesn't matter what we do. You're not going to be happy. And so I try to look outside myself and say, okay, what's their thought process? Where are they feeling hipped?
Yeah.
Which is hard to do, especially when you're like, I just want to charge you triple.
Yeah.
And just hope you'll leave or just pay it and be like, all right, well, you're worth dealing with.
Yeah.
And so that's the hardest part, is to try and see where someone's coming from, because often it's unrealistic, to be honest, often. And so I don't know. You have to pick your battles, and what's it worth, and is this going to end up costing me more down the road, or is this, we're just going to take a bath on this, and it's going to pay off in the long run. Yeah.
And I think you mentioned like cost, like what's it going to cost us down the road, and the thing that came to my mind when you said that is like, but like with people that are a pain in the butt, the cost on that, in your time, your energy, the stress that it causes you, you're so focused sometimes, and this is for everybody as an entrepreneur, sometimes we get so focused on the P&L, like the profit and loss, and we're just like, we need to make more money. We can't let this person go because then we're behind. And we get so focused on that we don't realize that if they're negatively affecting the driver of the business, you can't drive. And if you would just get rid of that one person, I've seen this in my life. It's the ability to say no. And if you can do that, it's almost like you can go pick up 10 more clients that are just seamless. You never talk to them. And sometimes I think we have, what would you call it? Like lack of faith, I think, of like, where's it going to come? But it always comes. And it doesn't weigh you down. And so I think that's a huge principle for a lot of, I wouldn't even say young entrepreneurs. Like there's entrepreneurs that have been doing stuff for 40 years that played this tune. They just don't want to let people go because how am I going to pay my bills? How am I going to do this? Or I need to make more money.
Too focused on the what ifs of the negative, and there's something good can come from it.
Yeah.
You think of humans too, like every human has a certain amount of bandwidth, right? Yeah. And when you hit your max is done. You can't take on anything else. So if you let that one person go, I think a lot of times you're surprised how much bandwidth negative energy takes versus positive energy. Mm-hmm. So losing one will free up more space for you to take on 3, 5, 10 more.
Yes.
But that's hard.
Yes. So one of the things I've been thinking about with energy is like with energy, like we all are just like these satellite towers in a way of energy. And if you are like around people all the time in your business, and I felt this way so many times, that I'm around people, I'm just like, I would never hang out with them on the weekend. I don't want to be around them. I am just doing business with them to be able to pay my bills. And every entrepreneur is thinking this right now. But they're a satellite tower. And if they're negative and they have negative energy, it is not worth taking that on and bringing that into your family life. And it's tough, especially when you're starting out, because you do kind of have to take what you can get. And you do kind of have to make sacrifices, I think, when you're starting out to be able to get things rolling and get to where you need to go. But once you get to a certain point, my point is you got to start looking at people as energy towers. And what are you transmitting to them? But what are they transmitting back to you? And if it's not beneficial, it's not worth it. And that's, I think, for me, like when...
Well, yeah, in a business, it's the same, right? Because if you have one negative employee, it affects all your employees. And so it drains them. Yeah, and even if you're like, I'm going to be down a guy and how am I going to fill that spot? If the negative energy is gone, your other people, their positive energy fills that gap really quick. Mm-hmm. They're willing to take on more because the energy is high and you're directing it in a way that uplifts, right? And they enjoy being there. They want to do more when people feel appreciated or feel good.
So good. So good. Building teams, I think, is so important, and having that energy, that camaraderie, and then being able to make sure that it doesn't seep in.
Yeah.
Because sometimes things can be going great in a business, and then all of a sudden something happens, like somebody gets a divorce or somebody loses a family member, and just something happens in their life that disrupts it. They become a cancer, can blow everything up. So you have to like always be watching your team, motivating, inspiring, but like talk to them and like be around them so that you know what's going on in your business. I've seen that. The only reason I'm saying that is because of the moving business.
Yeah.
I have all these movers. Similar. You have guys go on routes. You're trusting them with people's furniture to not break it.
Oh yeah.
And if there's a cancer in the group, it can go downhill real fast.
But also meeting your own employees with grace too, right? They are human. So maybe if something does happen, there's a death in the family or a divorce or something, if you have a relationship with your team and saying, hey, I see this is what's happening, can I help support you? It can also build them back up. I don't think people always have to stay at a negative place, but sometimes they just need somebody else to pull them up a little, you know?
For sure. Super good stuff today. Appreciate you guys coming. That was fun.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. I feel like we had some cool topics. We kind of bounced around all over the place.
We had some topics, that's for sure.
I feel like we have some reels for Luke to be able to put out there for sure.
Heck yeah.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Seriously.
Oh, heck yeah.
Really, really appreciate it. I know your time is valuable, and this was fun for me. And I'm glad that we got some of those things out there, especially with intimacy and family relationships, especially because I really don't think that that's talked about enough. And maybe it's just me.
Oh, we admire what you're doing. We're big fans of yours. So we appreciate you having us, and we're here cheering you on. And thanks for having us. We appreciate it.
Man.
Awesome.
Appreciate it.
Okay, guys. Hey, thanks for staying this long. If you got value out of this episode or some of the other episodes, share it. like this is something that we want out there to be able to help bless the lives of other people and be able to help them be the best version of themselves. So share with your family, share with your friends, if you want to. We would love to be able to help you in your life too. So for you guys, I know you said you got off social media, but if they want to contact you guys, how do they do that?
I'm still on Instagram very much. I just have backed off a little bit, but yeah, still on and
So if they want to network
chatting
with your Instagram, do you mind giving it on the
it's
podcast?
just Lacey Likes, LACEE LIKES.
And Bron, do you have one?
I do.
Hey.
I'm super low key Instagram guy. Just random stories and random crap here and there.
Yeah.
But yeah, just Bronberg, BronBerg.
Okay, awesome. Go follow these guys. They're great people. They're people that you want to get to know. But thanks again, guys. We'll see you next time.